out. So we got a little bigger crowd than I expected. I will give the file to Marie to post on the website. It's a single page handout about everything you need and how I go about this. I did not invent this method. I came across this on the internet. I've kind of merged a couple of presentations together, or a couple of processes together for using denatured alcohol to dry green wood. Yeah, you can go ahead and start the PowerPoint. So Nate got you this far. You cut this log, and you're going to turn this. You turn it. Everybody know what the twice turn method is? Where you take your bowl, you turn it rough, you leave the walls approximately 10% of the diameter thick. So a 10-inch bowl, you leave a 1-inch thick wall. Okay, you can air dry it. You can put it in a brown paper bag, which is what I used to do before I learned this method. With the denatured alcohol, you use a little chemistry to do it. Next slide, please. Okay, so you've got your bowl turned rough. This particular one is cherry. I don't remember when I turned it. I take and put it, after I've rough turned it, I put it in a bucket of alcohol. Go ahead. In this particular case, this was before I had the bucket. And I'll show you this bucket here in a minute. But this is a food grade bucket that I keep denatured alcohol in all the time. Okay.
So is that flammable?
It is flammable, yes. It's denatured alcohol with water in it because the water comes out of the bowl. So you put this in the bucket of water or the bucket of alcohol, or in this particular case, before I had the bucket, I took a bin and put a clear plastic bag, and then I dumped alcohol in there and packed shavings around the outside. I did that because I had a bigger bowl than I had a bucket at the time. This is my second bucket that I've used. So I had a smaller one. It was too big. So this bucket will take about an 11-inch diameter bowl. So if you're turning a 15-inch, then you're going to need either a 15-inch bucket, and I prefer to use something that I can seal back up rather than keeping an open bucket of alcohol in the basement, which is where my shop is. So when I use the bag, when I got done with that, then I dumped it back into my bucket. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I'll label, because the drying process takes anywhere from, or the soaking process, let me say that. The soaking process I use anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. You don't want to go on the short side. Leaving it in the alcohol longer does not seem to hurt anything. You can leave it in for 24 hours. I've, put it in late in the afternoon and haven't gotten down there before I go to bed at night. I'll go back the next day and pull it out of the alcohol. It doesn't seem to affect the drying process at all. Basically, what's happening is the alcohol is penetrating into the pores of the wood and forcing the water out. So go ahead, next slide, please. So when I put let's go back one, please. So when I put it in the alcohol, I usually write somewhere on either I put a piece of tape on the bucket, or I write on a whiteboard I've got in my shop, the species of wood that I'm putting in there, because, nothing's going to stay on here, and the time that I started it and the approximate time that I want to end it. Okay? I go down. Next slide, please. So when I take it out of the alcohol after the allotted time that I put on there, it's dripping wet. So I take it and I put it over, I either put it over the top of the open bucket like this and invert it, and just let it drip for maybe an hour. Or I also have a foil pan that I'll stick this on if I'm doing multiple pieces that won't fit over the bucket. Let it drain for about an hour, and then, next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. So there you can see the difference between those two. One was very shiny, and now the alcohol has started to evaporate. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, there's a couple of pieces that I've dried that have been soaking and now are ready. Next slide, please. Next slide. So then the next process that I do is I go ahead and wrap the outside of the bowl, because you want to slow the drying process to keep it from cracking. Now I've done well over 100 bowls of probably 20 or 25 different domestic species using this method. I've only lost one or two because they cracked, and they were maybe questionable going in. Sometimes I take questionable wood as a challenge. Right. I take brown paper bag, grocery bag, Menards, 15% sale, whatever. I cut these open, lay it out, and then I wrap the outside of the bowl. Tape it down like this, and then go ahead, next slide. Okay. There, I go through the process of wrapping it, so it's sort of tight around the outside, but it's not real necessary. George Rogers is a member. I saw it in his shop when I visited him one day when he was drying some of the wood from the bur oak from the zoo. He used my method of drying. I'll call it my method. But he didn't wrap it like this and invert it on the shelf. He just wrapped the outside and stuck a whole bunch of them in like a pan or on the top of a cardboard box. So the outside was wrapped, but the bowl was open to the air, and he said they came out fine. So you can use that way, or you can do it like this. I've had real good success wrapping it like this. Go ahead, next slide, please. Next slide. There you can see the process that I go through when I wrap it. Next slide, please. That just happens to be showing you how I cut the pieces of tape, and stick them so that I can grab them real quick. That was before I got this handy dandy little tape holder. Next slide, please. Then I go through and I trim it up a little bit so that it's nice, neat. Just something I do. Go ahead, next slide. Then I label the outside of the bag with the species and the date that I soaked it, and the date 3 weeks from now. I use anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. I've always used 3 weeks, but I've heard you can use 2 and not any problem. I've just never been in that big of a hurry, so I just use 3 weeks. So I put that date down there, and then I know once that date hits, it should be ready for me to use. Then I'll unwrap it right on the bottom of it, the species, and put it on the shelf, or go ahead and start turning it. Next slide, please. So then I have some wire shelves down in my shop that I put these on inverted. You can see up in the upper right-hand corner, there's some blocks of wood, or actually strips of wood. I have taken wood and soaked strips of wood with the bark on it or without the bark, and that I haven't turned, I've just cut, and those seem to come out all right too. Same process, I just don't wrap them. I just stick them up there and let them dry, air dry for the 3 weeks. So what I use, denatured alcohol from Menards, anywhere you can get it. I try and buy it, what's on sale, or 15% bag sale. I put a couple of gallons in there. I think it's around $15, $18 a gallon. No. I was going to show you my bucket because I have this bucket. It's a food service bucket. So I wanted to show you the inside. Looks like coffee. This started out clear. It doesn't seem to matter that the tannins and everything from the wood get into the juice. I've put maple and I've put walnut. The maple doesn't get dark. So the color of the solution doesn't seem to matter. It won't impart any color into the wood. When this starts to evaporate or be used up, I just dump some more alcohol in it. I think in 10 or 12 years that I've been using this process, I've emptied this bucket once.
Is that when you moved?
Yeah, when I moved.
You ever tried filtering like with coffee filter? See if it'll come out?
Well, there's no solids in it.
Well, there's gotta be some solids in that liquid.
No, I haven't. I haven't felt the need to do it.
How did you dispose of it?
Yeah, no, I think I put it in the cans and threw it out in the trash or something. I don't remember. You might be able to burn it. I mean, but you're going to get a blue flame. It's a fairly substantial volume of water in the alcohol, but it doesn't seem to.
The water content is so high that the alcohol is no longer pulling more out.
I've never gotten to that point because the bucket will start to get low and then I'll dump some more alcohol in it.
So the science behind it is the alcohol replaces the water
Yeah.
that's in the cells?
Yeah. So then you just dry it out. You just let it evaporate and dry. Like I say, I use 3 weeks. The various processes I've seen are 2 to 3 weeks. I've never been in that big of a hurry that I had to do it in 2, but and I'm not sophisticated enough that I've used a moisture meter. I didn't have one until recently to try the wood when I got it off the tree like this, and when I put it in the water or in the alcohol, and when I took it out, and what the final was. But I've never weighed them or anything. No, I've just done this, and it seems to work. Like I say, I've only lost 2 or 3, maybe 4 bowls, and they were questionable to begin with because they had cracks in them, and then the cracks, kind of warped so that you couldn't put them. It was even going to be hard to put a patch or so, or even put epoxy in there to fill the gap and still get it.
So where do you get a food service?
I got this from a McMaster car, but you may be able to get it like at Gordon Food Service or a restaurant supply house. Yeah.
You can get a 5-gallon bucket for a minute.
Home Depot.
Yeah, I don't. The 5-gallon buckets from Home Depot with their lids may work fine. I don't know. I just.
Screw on it, yeah.
It doesn't screw, it pops.
Yeah.
The screw-on ones, like I got them for doing honey, and they were at
Farm and Fleet.
Farm and Fleet.
Okay. Farm and Fleet.
They had a top that would pop on like a regular bucket, and then the inside was slow.
Does it give off much odor when it's drying?
No. You don't smell a thing, except when you're standing over the open bucket. But my wife does not complain about odor from the basement while it's drying or anything like that.
Yeah, well, keep drinking them.
No, you don't want to drink your stuff. This stuff will kill you.
Turning block, you think you could, an unturned, zero turn turning block. How big a piece do you think you can put in there and dry?
I don't know. I think I would, if you took, say you took this, like this, and put it in alcohol, I think you'd want to let it soak for a couple of days to try and get,
I did cookies this past summer for a wedding, and I cut them fresh, put them in the alcohol, They cleaned up, but I soaked them for a long time, probably longer than I needed to. But I was trying to do good success on it. I soaked them for a week, and then I let them sit inside of another sealed Rubbermaid container for another week. To drip and get out, because they were 2.5 inches thick.
Yeah. So the wood will distort, as you can see from this. This is a piece of dogwood. But this happens when you air dry it, when you dry it in a bag or air dry it or anything else. So you just need to make sure you leave your walls thick enough that you can compensate for it when you do your final turning. Any other questions? All right.